As in a capons, culinary capers, Big G's gonna show you what to do. As in a capons, culinary.
Hello there, my name's Gerald Ray Capon, and here's a little video to help you make a big batch of Provençal style veggies, as this is the season of abundance. This is a recipe that can be either eaten straight away or frozen for the winter. I'm not a vegan myself, but I realised that a lot of the dishes that I cook regularly for family and friends were actually 100% vegan. And there's nothing wrong with that, is there, eh? Everything you will need to prepare this recipe is to be found in the picture. The only thing that I forgot in the collage was the tube of tomato puree to thicken up the sauce at the end. It's the only non-fresh veggie in the recipe. And the only item you may have difficulty in finding is the Caprons, or fleur de capre, as they are known as well in French. The next video I make will be my recipe for Indian chickpea soup, to be followed by my recipe for hummus. Both are 100% vegan, like my Provençal style veggies. So let's start by topping the tomatoes. I used large summer ripe cooking tomatoes. These are known as olivettes in French, and in most parts of the English speaking world as plum tomatoes. If you use round tomatoes, you will need to deseed them as well as skinning them. This isn't necessary with plum tomatoes as they have so few seeds. Once they're all topped, they need to be put in boiling water in a large saucepan with salt and covered. But before we go any further, let's talk quickly about what I've used to prepare and cook my veggies. You will need a large saucepan. The one I use is a 28cm diameter, thick bottom casserole in high quality stainless steel. I've had it for 8 years and it's made in Germany by the WMF company, WMF.com. And it will set you back about €100, $130 or £90. I've owned others. This is the best one I've ever had and it should last me the rest of my life. I'm not being paid by or have received any inducements from WMF. They're just good products. You will need a very large sharp kitchen knife. Even if you don't need to use a machete like I do, the minimum length is 20 centimeters, and I repeat, it must be sharp. It's a good idea as well to have a smaller paring knife as shown. This makes some tasks like cleaning bell peppers much easier. You will of course need a wooden spoon to stir. So I've been boiling them for about, 5 minutes. So now I'm going to take them out and let them get cool enough for me to skin them. To cool the tomatoes before skinning them, I drain them and put them in cold, unsalted water, which I change once or twice until they're cool enough to handle. As you can see, they skin very easily, the peel just falls off. But you mustn't boil the tomatoes more than 5 minutes, or they'll start disintegrating in the water, and this cooked matter you will lose in the cold rinses. Once peeled, the tomatoes are diced into cubes between 1 to 2 centimeters, that's 1/4 to 3/4 of an inch, and then put aside in another bowl or saucepan for later. You can see how few seeds there are in the finished chopped tomatoes. The oils that I've used are a personal choice. If you don't like the taste of one of the oils that I use, you can choose your own. However, the recipe I'm making is Provençal style veggies, and for that reason, more than 50% of the oil used should really be olive oil. Don't go buying cheap olive oil, only the virgin cold pressed oil should be used. And why not splash out and buy something nice as I did? You won't regret it. The sesame oil is from the health food store and it's not cheap, but it gives a special taste. And the sunflower, tournesol oil, is from my local supermarket. You probably noticed I don't do quantities, weights and measures, so we'll continue in that vein, eh? I pour the oils into the pan on the fresh rosemary from my garden and fresh thyme, about 5 sprigs of each as shown. The ratio of the oils I use is 25% sesame, 25% sunflower and 50% olive oil. I pour enough oil into the pan to bring the level to about 5 millimeters. It would obviously need to be higher in a smaller diameter pan. I then cook the herbs slowly in the oil for 5 to 10 minutes, stirring occasionally. First of all, be very careful with sharp knives. The next step is to slice the onions. I like to do them in rings. To do this, once the onions are skinned, you slice off a little sliver off one side so that it will sit squarely on the chopping board. Then proceed as shown. The 3 other onions were already sliced and cooking with the oil and herbs. Once all in, they need initially a brisk cooking with lots of stirring on a medium heat for at least 5 minutes. Then take them off the heat. Note that the oil shouldn't get too hot and smoke, and that the onions shouldn't brown or caramelize. They should just soften slightly. Just stir it. When they're softened, I add the tomatoes, then stir them in and bring to a medium heat, so that the oil, the tomatoes and the herbs are all infusing together. I cover and stir regularly for about 10 minutes, adding water if necessary. While this is going on, we'll start adding the condiments and spices. Using the quantity of caprons shown in the picture, they're known in English as caperberries, take the stalks off and put them into the saucepan. These aren't quite the same as pickled capers, but if you can't find the caprons, then pickled capers can replace them. The taste is quite similar. That's a bit strange really, isn't it? In Capon's Culinary Capers, Gerald Capon is telling you can't find the caprons, then you can use the capers. Oh well. Next, we'll add 3 large tablespoons of mixed olives. I make my own brine and buy different styles of olives and mix them all together. The larger ones are the nicest to eat, and the smaller ones add an olive flavour to the sauce. Next, salt and pepper. I use black pepper from the health food store. A bit more expensive, but it's from a named farm using a single variety of pepper. I add 20 twists at a medium grind, then 2 scoops of gros sel, which is sun-evaporated sea salt. Next, in the mortar and pestle, I grind the coriander and cumin seeds to a fine powder, which I then stir into the saucepan. You'll need to add some more water now, and then top and chop the aubergines, the eggplants, skin and all, into 3 centimetres, that's 1 inch cubes. I use only small young aubergines that are a little bit green at the blunt end. This is so that I won't have to be bothered with seeds. If you can only find large ripe aubergines, you'll need to roast them separately in the oven in olive oil, then deseed them, then add them to the veggies at the end of the cooking process. The young aubergines I use may be a little bit bitter, but the sweetness of the ripe tomatoes and the onions will easily balance that out. Put the aubergines in the pan, stir, put the heat up high and cook for 10 minutes with the lid off, stirring regularly. Next, we add the garlic. I use half a head of fresh garlic on the left and half a head of this season's purple garlic that's been partially dried. The garlic should be finely chopped. Don't use a garlic press because it changes the flavour. The garlic is skinned and chopped with a sharp knife, and in the case of the dried garlic, the green shoots in the middle of the clove need to be removed. Fresh garlic doesn't have these shoots. If you can only get small dried heads of garlic, use 2. As an aside, if you can get enough fresh garlic, it can be sautéed in large chunks in a pan with olive oil with just salt and pepper and served as a separate vegetable. Once chopped, the garlic needs to be stirred into the pan. Cover and simmer for 45 minutes on a low heat. Don't let the veggies stick, add water if necessary. They should be just simmering at about 100 degrees. You can set this on an induction plate. While they're cooking slowly, we'll prepare the bell peppers, then tidy up and clean the kitchen.
I said now Caprons Culinary Capers, Big G's gonna show you what to do. I said now Caprons Culinary Capers, Big G's gonna show you what to do. I said now Big G's gonna show you what to do.
The bell peppers need less cooking than the rest of the vegetables, and for this reason they will only be added to the saucepan after the veggies have been simmering for about 45 minutes. Once the bell peppers are cleaned, they're chopped and simmered with the rest of the vegetables for 30 to 45 minutes, stirring occasionally. I add more olive oil at this time, a generous amount. In Elizabeth David's French provincial cooking, which was a great influence on me, she refers to Provençal style vegetables as being stewed in olive oil. This is what we're trying to achieve. Then we're getting near the end. When the bell peppers are cooked, I add an almost complete tube of tomato puree. Italian or Tunisian brands are the best I've found. The finished article should look a lot like the picture. I hope that you enjoy it. This is a little supplement I've added on the 19th of September, which shows you how to de-seed and skin round tomatoes. Pour mes amis français, je suis en train de faire la version française et vont être sorties d'ici 1 ou 2 semaines. À bientôt. Sometimes, especially in America, plum tomatoes are very expensive. And quite often, round tomatoes are available and often very ripe, sometimes even from the garden. So here's the way to prepare round tomatoes for cooking, which involves de-seeding them as well as skinning them. First of all, using the paring knife, we take out where the stalk went in, okay, like that. Then we cut the tomato in half. We put over the sieve, we take out the seeds as well as the pulp. The pulp goes in there. We'll recuperate the pulp afterwards. Okay? So I'm not going to do them all, but that's the idea. Now once you've done that, if you squeeze the pulp, the seeds will come off, as you see here. So then I'm going to put them into the pan with the onions, and I've added much more water than normal. And I'm going to put the tomatoes in like that, upside down. And I'll fill up the pan with all the other ones afterwards. These are the tomatoes, they're now all in the pan. You can see the water's boiling well. We're going to cover them and then leave them cook for about 5 or 6 minutes. If you look over here, I've got all the pulp out and there's quite a lot of juice come out of these tomatoes, and that's going directly into the sauce. And we'll see once they're cooked how we take the skins off. Okay, well, if you look at the tomatoes, those skins are ready to come off in all cases. So what I'm going to do now is turn off the heat and leave as it is with the top off for about 5 minutes. Otherwise you will burn your fingers taking the skins off. Okay, I'm going to take off the skins now. You'll see how easily they come off. But I will say this, and that is change fingers between each tomato. Otherwise, as I said, you will burn your fingers. And if your fingers do get hot, run them under cold water. So there you have it. You get any kind of ripe tomatoes you can make into a tomato sauce. It's that easy. And you can then leave the skinned tomatoes in the pan and add another layer of de-seeded tomato halves and start again. It's much easier to pull the skins off one layer at a time, because that way they don't get all mixed up.